Greetings everyone, Shalom. In this video, I will teach you a simple technique that you can use to contemplate the Gospel of Thomas, the verses in the Gospel of Thomas. Many Christians are afraid of meditation and contemplative prayer because they think it's not part of their tradition. What do you think Yeshua was doing, or John the Baptist, or the Essenes and his disciples? What were they doing when they went off to the wilderness by themselves for extended periods? They certainly weren't sitting around twiddling their thumbs the whole time. They were fasting and practicing deep contemplative practices. Okay? So of course it's part of the Christian tradition, and most preachers and pastors and priests of mainstream Christian churches have never practiced meditation or contemplative prayer, and therefore have no direct knowledge of their soul. And they are spiritually ignorant individuals. They're ignorant of their spirit. They don't know what they are. They've never experienced their soul because they have this aversion to meditation and contemplative prayer. Really, the only way to experience your soul directly is when the mind is completely still, the body is relaxed, the energy is still, and once you've transcended your identification with the body, the mind, the ego, the personality, etc., all that's left is the soul. And so through these contemplative practices, meditative practices, you can experience your soul directly. And so, as Yeshua says, it's the blind leading the blind. So 99.9% of pastors, preachers, priests out there in mainstream Christian churches are spiritually ignorant, and they're blind. They're spiritually blind individuals. And so you don't want to learn about religion and spirituality from these people that have never had direct experience of their soul, because they refuse to meditate, because they think it's not part of their tradition. Of course it is. Yeshua was a mystic, obviously, and he meditated, he practiced contemplative prayer, went off to the wilderness by himself and fasted for extended periods and all of that. And so this technique you can use with any sacred text, any scripture that you wish to contemplate. In this case, we're going to use the Gospel of Thomas because it is the most mystical early Christian text that we have available to us. And so it's really wonderful for to use in our contemplative prayer practices. First of all, you'll want to have a space in your house where you practice contemplative prayer, meditation every day, and that's all that you do in that space. You don't do anything else there. And what this does is it creates an energetic frequency, sort of an energetic residue in that space that facilitates the practice and makes the space is more conducive to that practice. Okay, that's very important. Don't do anything else in that space. If you have an entire room you can use, that's ideal. I built a small little hut on our property here about 6 years ago that I use, and that's the only thing I do in there is pray, meditate, and all of that. Okay? So you'll want to have that space set aside just for your spiritual practices. To start, before you begin contemplating, you'll want to do 3 physiological sighs to relax the body, the mind, the energy. And in order to do that, you'll inhale deeply through the nose, hold the breath, count to 5 in your head, 5 seconds. Exhale through the mouth with a loud sigh, relaxing the entire body. Inhale deeply through the nose, hold it. Exhale through the mouth and relax. So you can do that 3 times minimum. You can do it more than that if you want. And so that's just to get your head right and get your body relaxed before you begin contemplating. If you already practice some other pranayama or breathwork techniques, go ahead and use those. Okay? And so you'll choose a verse you want to contemplate. If you don't already have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, please go ahead and get a copy of my book. Yeshua the Anointed One, Pre-Pauline Christianity. It's available on Amazon for $7.77. It's about as cheap as I can offer it to y'all. And in that book, I have Q, the Gospel of Thomas, the Didache, and the Epistle of James. Those 4 texts, along with my commentaries. There's also information about the Essenes and the Ebionites in there as well, using historical documents. Okay? And you'll choose a verse that you wish to contemplate. In this case, I'm going to use the second verse from the Gospel of Thomas, which is one of my favorites. And in future videos, in the Gospel of Thomas sermon series, I will go through each verse and explain what I think they mean. But the idea is when you practice contemplative prayer that you have your own realizations, you have your own revelations, you have your own insights. This is how we communicate with God. This is how we talk to the divine through our contemplative prayer practice. So we read a verse, and we sit in the deep silence, and we wait for an insight, a revelation, okay? And so the way that you'll do this is you'll read the verse 3 times, okay? 1 time with a normal volume out loud. The second time you'll whisper the verse, and the third time you read it mentally. You don't say it out loud, okay? So for example, in the second verse, Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." Second time I read it, Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all." The third time, I read it internally, mentally, to myself. Okay? And then I close my eyes. I turn within. I concentrate here in the forehead. My attention stays here the whole time. I breathe normally. You can observe your breath if you wish, if it helps you concentrate. And you wait in the silence, in the deep stillness, for a reply. Now, sometimes your insight or realization comes in the form of words, language. Sometimes it's simply a feeling, a sensation, a vision, a visualization. And so don't assume that your answer will come in the form of limited human language. God doesn't always talk that way. Sometimes God speaks to us through visions, through sensations, through feelings. Okay? So be open to any kind of response from the divine as you contemplate. And so I recommend to sit in the silence and the stillness for at least 10 minutes after you read the verse. If you become distracted, most people do, that's normal. Yeah, the mind begins to wander and all of that. Bring your attention back to the breath. Bring your attention back to the forehead each time without much effort, minimal effort, without getting frustrated or anything like that. This requires practice, decades of practice, to perfect the technique. So don't expect immediate gratification, immediate results. The spiritual path doesn't work like that. It requires discipline and devotion and dedication, okay, and practice. So you'll read the verse 3 times, out loud, whisper, mentally, close your eyes, focus on your breath, focus on the forehead, experience the deep peace and stillness of God, and wait for a reply, wait for a response, wait for an insight or realization to occur. Try to do that for at least 10 minutes. And also, by the way, if you just become too distracted and restless, repeat the process. Start over. Do 3 more physiological sighs, relax, read the verse again 3 times, and close the eyes and sit in the silence again. So if you become distracted after 3 or 4 minutes, repeat the process, start over. It's fine. It's fine. And so you'll want to include this in your daily spiritual practice, your daily contemplative prayer practice. Try to do this every day. Try to do it at the same time every day, because that creates a pattern. It creates a routine. And it's far more easy to be disciplined when you have an established routine and pattern that you do on a daily basis. It's just like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. It's just something you do every day. So if it's planned, if you know, okay, at 8 a.m. every morning I'm going to do this practice for 15 minutes or whatever it is, then you'll know, okay, this is my prayer time. And then after you finish, feel free to do any other techniques that you like to include in your spiritual practices, and conclude the practice and go about your business, okay? But this is your private time with the Lord. So try to eliminate all distractions from your environment, from your house, the space you're using. Make sure it's quiet, dark. You can light a candle if that puts you in a more contemplative mood. That can be a good idea, okay? But try to be in a space that isn't noisy, doesn't have a lot of light, doesn't have distracting odors, so that your senses are completely internalized. We want to internalize the senses so that we're not distracted by anything occurring externally. Okay? So you can use this technique for any sacred text that you like, but especially it works really well with the Gospel of Thomas, because the sayings or teachings in the Gospel of Thomas are so profound and mystical. Thanks so much. Many blessings.